we decided to go across the country and find the most resilient entrepreneurs who strive to continue to succeed and disrupt in every industry that they are in. So welcome to the Disruptors Network.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast, and I have a great guest today, a friend of the show, I'd like to say. He's actually going to be, it's a special episode because it's announcing the Disruptors Network Season 2 is launching this week. The docu series is launched this weekend, and Charlie Villanueva, who's with me today, is my first guest there. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being patient with us for it to come out, but I'm happy just to get to talk to you.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And you don't need a lot of introduction, but I'll give people a little bit of background on you. Your episode on Disruptors Network is actually kind of based around you being more than an athlete. And, you know, I know you in your post-NBA life, really as a developer and a builder and an entrepreneur and everything like that. But, you know, you were in the NBA for 11 years, I believe.
11 years, yep.
11 years, right? And I'm from New York, so you were a pretty big deal here for a long time as far as being a high school star and then a college star at UConn. And now you've kind of moved on to other things. But we have something in common. My kids are 50% Dominican. My wife's born in DR. She grew up in the Heights. So kind of the first question that I'm interested in is like, how did that upbringing shape you, like growing up in New York and that culture around that stuff to kind of where you are today?
Well, I was born and raised by some immigrants' parents. Both my parents are from the Dominican Republic. I was born in New York, Queens. And then just growing up in Queens, it's tough. It's hard. It's rough. It's only the strong, you know, it's one of those things like, what's that saying? Only the strong survive, right? Yeah. So it was one of those things, man. Where I grew up, where in a neighborhood, it was called like the dead end, right? You know, and it was a lot of kids, and sports was something that I was always into. But along with that, you know, there was also a lot of, you know, I was around a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of violence. That's just part of growing up in Queens, during those times. And it was rough. It was rough, but it kind of shaped me up to who I am today.
Yeah, you know, I look at some of that stuff, and I know that you actually got a chance to leave probably in high school, right? You left for prep school in high school. You went to New Jersey.
I went to prep school in Jersey, but I left New York when I was about 11 years old.
Okay. And where did you go? Where did you go from there?
I went to Jersey. I used to live in Union City.
Okay.
Which is not far from New York.
Yeah, I'm not far from it. I'm in Edgewater today, so I have properties over there. So I know that the cultures are similar for sure. Even going from Queens to there, it's like the cultures are similar. But did you start to kind of build a network, like even in prep school or college, that you utilize today at all for your post NBA life? Was like, are any of those connections to something that you're still kind of working with today?
As far as connections with
like real estate or like your entrepreneur life, or do you use any of that stuff now, or is it all new?
So it's all new because all I knew was basketball. You know, I was trying to make it out. That's all I focused on, was on my passion, which was basketball at the time. And as far as being an entrepreneur and you know, getting into real estate, I kicked myself in the butt, man, because it's like, man, I could have started a lot sooner, a lot earlier. But no regrets. It is what it is, you know. Better late than never, one of those things. So I didn't really understand what entrepreneurship and the real estate game as I got towards the end of my career, because all I knew was basketball. And then once I knew that the ball was going to be taken away from me at some point, once I realized that, you know, that's when I started focusing on life after basketball.
You know, I think about, I'm 45 now, so I start to think about like what my post-career life is going to look like. And then I start to think about the money. And, you know, we all could look, I think at some point you get into life, especially you, and you're like, all right, if I liquidated all this, I could live off of it. But when the money's not coming in, it kind of feels different. Did you start to think about that towards the end of your career? Like, well, now the money's not going to be coming in anymore. So like, what do I know you probably were never comfortable with that being the case. Like, so how do I start to generate income? Is that what you started to think about when you thought about real estate?
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, once those check stops coming in, I mean, they hit different, man. Different. You know, I was used to getting paid every 2 weeks all year round. So, for the past 11 years from 2005 to 2016. So I was used to getting paid every 2 weeks. For the past 11 years, and then that it just stops cold
Gosh,
turkey.
yeah.
It
Overnight,
just
it's
stops
over.
cold
Yeah.
turkey, like boom, like, oh man, now you have to just sit back and realize, like, all right, like, all right, I got to figure this thing out. But luckily and fortunately enough, man, I had a good dad who kind of put me onto the real estate game, and my brother who kind of took lead and became a realtor, started his own brokerage, and then things just started opening up for me and opportunities started coming in, and then that's how the wheel started turning for me, and started investing my money into real estate because I was a big investor already in the stock market,
Yeah.
but I didn't really understand the stock market. I just depended on others to kind of lead me in that aspect. But as I didn't wake up and realize, I got to get this, I got to get it together. Is what towards the end of my basketball career.
Yeah, almost like I got the seed money, but like how do I kind of make that multiply to the next thing? And you got something else in your life now that you've had, since you were young, which is alopecia, which you speak about it, you're in the news about it, you're kind of like putting awareness out from it. But how do you look back on your childhood with that when you first kind of found out? Because I think you were 11 when you first found out that, that's like, so I'm sure that you get kids more than anything that reach out to you. Like, how do you like, because you're a big, cool guy in high school, no matter what, you play basketball, right? But you still have this going on. And I know kids are not easy to be around, especially in those neighborhoods. So how did you like deal with that? And how do you tell people today how they can cope with it, like from that standpoint? Because it's great what you're doing.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm thankful, social media wasn't really around, because kids could be extremely mean and it could be tough to deal with. But what I tell most of the kids now in today's era, make sure you have alopecia and alopecia doesn't have you. It's one of those things, man, where it's extremely tough, man, because I was born, quote unquote normal, with hair and, regular with eyebrows, eyelash, everything normal. And then all of a sudden your appearance, things starts to change out of nowhere. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. People say stress induced, but I mean, the whole world would be bald if that was the case.
Right, bro. Yeah, that was
If
about
that
30
was
years
the
ago.
case.
Yeah.
So during that time, there was no cure. There was really no treatment for it. No one in my family had it. So, and it kind of took me about 6 years to accept it, man. But I kind of used that as the driving force, to kind of help me overcome it, man. Like, as far as using basketball as a tool to overcome it. And that's what I kind of preach, man. It's like, yo, I was I'm a regular kid from Queens, New York, grew up on welfare, and was able to make it out. So, and didn't let anything stop them, even including a condition like alopecia, which it can be extremely difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and you know what? You just make a good point, actually, because you know, just because you play basketball, where you come from, there was 50 kids just like your size, had
Mhm.
ability, all this stuff. Like just because you were born a certain way didn't make you were going to make it a certain way, especially the way you made it, because you had already by high school gotten to a certain level, which took a lot of work. It didn't just happen. And on top of that, if you're a person that follows basketball, you were a shooter at a time when big men weren't shooters. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like you were kind of out, you were always outside of the box. So like, I think that's a good point putting out to people. Like I'm just a normal person who did all this stuff to make it. But like, I think at this point, do you ever think if I wouldn't have played basketball, would I be doing the same things I'm doing today? Like in what your passions?
No, I'll say no because basketball is all I knew. Like basketball was the only option.
Yeah.
I didn't have a plan B.
Yeah.
I'm keeping it real. I
Yeah.
did not have
Yeah.
a plan B. And I don't know where I would be at if it wasn't for basketball because basketball is all I knew. And that was my passion. And I just followed my passion. Um, and that's what I kind of tell people as well, man. Just follow your passion, man, and don't chase the money or don't chase the fame.
That's
You
a
know,
really good point.
I think if you follow your passion, good things could happen. I tell people this all the time. Like, I started playing basketball at the age of 10. So, and I got drafted when I was 20 years old.
It's crazy.
Played ball for free for 10 years, right? Quote unquote, for free, and then I started getting paid for it. So if you stick with something long enough, eventually the money
Yeah,
will come. So,
a lot of
but
reps.
yeah, a lot of reps, a lot of reps. But basketball is all I knew. Is all
Yeah.
I knew. So I don't know where I would have been at if it wasn't for basketball. But I'm glad that I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. So basketball kind of opened the doors for me, to become a successful entrepreneur and kind of drove me into real estate as well.
You seem to like, and I've met your brother and I've met your wife, and like you seem to have a pretty tight circle. Is
Yeah.
that something you picked up after you made it, like, into the NBA, quote unquote, made it into the NBA? Like, hey, I can't have everybody around me, because I think that goes for everybody, right? No matter what you're doing, you find any success in anything, you really need to keep your circle as tight as possible. I mean, is that something that you purposely were doing, or you had to learn some hard lessons before you went that way?
Well, it was always a learning curve, but the one thing about me was I never was a guy that had like a big entourage. What you'll see around me is my family, my brothers, my sisters, my cousin. Um, I didn't have like this big posse or
Yeah.
any I had to really take care of and this, that, and the third. I kind of eliminated that, earlier on in my career. Even in high school, like I was just always into myself. Um, very quiet kid.
Because it's
And
easy to get caught up, because I'm sure even in high school, people are chasing you, especially at that time, because people were trying to gain fame at a time when there was no social media. So it was harder to get fame where you were kind of
correct,
getting attention.
correct. So I mean, the people that I had around me did a good job to kind of keep me grounded. I had a mentor who good friend of mine's, and things is just, I kept all that negative stuff away, man. Like I wasn't into drugs, I was into alcohol. I didn't have none of that issue, violence or being in gangs or none of that. I was always the kid that just played ball and stayed away from all that. And having a good circle was important. Having older brothers, because I'm the youngest out of all the boys. So having older brothers was key because I was able to watch their mistakes and I benefited from it.
Did going to Toronto first kind of set you on a different path where you didn't, like, everyone didn't have the same access to you? That was a big city though, Toronto, but
Yeah.
it's not here.
Yeah, it's a big city. It was a culture shock for me, man. I don't think I ever been outside of the country at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because I don't think I left the country until I was in my 20s either. So
Which
you're
is
probably right.
crazy. I think I
Yeah.
had to get my passport. Like I didn't even have a passport.
Did you
But
do
it
a
was
work? Did you do a workout up there? Did you work
yes,
out when you
actually
grabbed?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. So I must have had I definitely had my passport by then. But yeah, I did a workout for Toronto and it was great. I had a great workout. And then, when I got drafted there, going to Toronto was amazing, man, because it was a culture shock for me, a little bit different, but it was like New York, but a lot cleaner and a lot safer.
Yeah.
No disrespect to New York. I'm
It
a New
is. You're
York
right, though.
guy.
You're right. You're right.
But it was cool and they embraced me with open arms. So I was super ecstatic to be in Toronto.
What was that process like? Because you came off a national championship, you were kind of highly regarded, you were a lottery pick. Did you have a lot of team workouts? Did you kind of know where you were going? Did you have any idea where you wanted to go? Or you were just happy to go?
So I knew I worked out for multiple teams. I believe I worked out at the time they were called the Charlotte Bobcats, now they're called the Hornets. But
Yeah.
I worked out for the Bobcats. I worked out for Toronto. I worked out for a couple other teams, but I worked out for Charlotte twice, and they had the fifth pick. So I knew 1 through 4 was already established. With Andrew Bogut, Chris Paul, Darren Williams, and I forget Marvin Williams was the other one. So I knew those 4 guys were already there, and then I started at number 5. So I knew I was going to go anywhere from 5 to 10 because those are the teams I worked out for. But the team I did not work out for was the New York Knicks, and believe it or not, they had the number 8th pick. So I was because I'm gonna be honest, I did not want to go to New York,
At
bro.
that point, it was not a good time to be. You're
I
right.
did not. The reason why I didn't want to go to New York is because I didn't want to deal with the pressure of dealing with everyone. You know,
Yeah.
everyone. Let me get some tickets. People pulling me here. People pulling me there.
That's actually
Like,
smart though, that you didn't
yeah,
want to.
I like being like, I lived in Jersey. I went to prep school in Jersey. I went to Connecticut, close to New York, but a little far enough. It's not.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not. But it's not New York, New
Yeah.
York. So, um, and then once Charlotte passed on me, I didn't work out for Portland, and then I knew I was going to Toronto because I had a great workout. And I was thankful to go to Toronto.
What about, I mean, obviously you loved that. That was the city. I don't know if that's the city you liked the most. That's what you settled in after you played there. You played in Milwaukee for a long time also. What was it like? Did you live there?
Well, I lived in all the cities I played for. When I was in Toronto for a year, and then I got traded, and I was so hurt, man. I was super hurt, and that's when I got really introduced to the business because my first year I was just playing ball. I didn't really
Yeah. You
just
got
play
injured
ball.
early.
Yes, and I was what 21 years old, and I got traded at the end of the season. And I remember at the time the coach Sam Mitchell and the GM who's Brian Colangelo. I had a great year. I was rookie runner up behind Chris Paul. Um, I had a great year. I averaged like 14 points, as a rookie. And then I ended up getting traded. And the coach, I remember the coach and the GM told me, the only way we trade you is if Michael Jordan comes out of retirement. So when you tell a 21-year-old kid that, you're like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
So because a lot of teams were calling, and I remember them telling me that's a good thing. That means you're doing something right if other teams are calling for you. But we're not going to trade you. And then they ended up getting a new coach. They started making some changes, and I was gone. Right.
It's crazy because I look at that now, like that. You were what they traded you for who?
TJ Ford,
And
because
Pick.
TJ
He
Ford,
had a good year too.
point guard.
Yeah, he had a good year too, right? His first
Yeah,
couple of years.
yeah. He had a good career. He had a
Yeah.
good career, and then injuries caught up to him. But he had a good couple years. They needed a point guard, and at the time we had Chris Bosh, and then they ended up drafting Andrea Bargnani. So um,
Yeah, got it.
I kind of saw the writing on the wall when they drafted him because I'm like, oof, unless they intend to play us three together. Um,
Doesn't make
but
sense. He played the same position, really.
yeah, we all kind of play the same position. So yeah, man. And then I got traded to Milwaukee, and then Milwaukee ended up being a great thing for me because I
Yeah.
was there for 3 years, and it kind of set me up to get a big contract in Detroit. But Milwaukee definitely gave me the opportunity, man, and I was thankful to go to Milwaukee for sure.
You were in Detroit post uh
The championship run and all that.
all that. Yeah, that was it right after that. So that was who was still there when you got there?
Uh, uh, some of the core guys were still there, and like Tayshaun Prince, Ben Wallace, Richard Hamilton, they were still there. Chauncey Billups got traded. Who's the other one? Rasheed Wallace was gone.
And so you
So
signed this. So that was your real first free agency.
yes, that was my first free agency, and I signed the first day of free agency. I ended up going with Ben Gordon, who was my teammate in UConn when
Right.
we won the championship. At that time, to me, it just made sense to go to Detroit because Detroit was a winning
Yeah,
organization.
always was. You're right. Yeah.
They won a championship in '04. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals, like 6 years in a row. So to me, it just made sense that Detroit was a good spot for me. It was a winning organization, but ooh, did I thought different, man.
You, so you had how many contracts did you have? Four? In
No, so I only had two contracts.
That was a long
Well,
contract, the second one.
really three. The first my rookie contract, you're the way the structure is, you 2 years guaranteed and then 2 years team option.
Okay.
So Milwaukee ended up picking my option years, of course, and then I signed 5 years with Detroit. That was my second, and my third was with Dallas.
Balance. Got it. So you had to, so you had, so it's at what point do you start in that process? Like a lot of like, especially after the Detroit contract, I'm sure like a lot of this money, is there a rule? Is like I'm putting away 80% of my income and I'm spending 20%. Like when do you start looking at that?
To be honest, like when it comes to my finances, like I was never a really big spender. I mean, I like my nice things here and there, but I was never one of these guys that just spend a whole paycheck, on the
Yeah.
club, the cars, and
You didn't
this,
need it.
that, and the third. I had my nice little cars here and there, but I saved majority of my contract. I was never really a big spender, and then I got introduced to saving. I mean, putting my money into the stock market, and to me, all I cared about is, if I put in $1 million and at the end of the year, if it's 1.3, it did its job.
Yeah.
You know, so that's all I really looked at, and I just saved my money, kept myself in a budget. But I was doing these things like without knowing or without really putting too much thought into it. I was just doing it because that's what I was just used to. So, and then as time went on, I started getting more and more savvy on how to manage my money the proper way.
What made you, when you got to Texas and Dallas specifically, what made you kind of like, all right, this is where I think I'm going to settle? Did you look at financially, like, hey, tax wise, this is the best place to be, or real estate wise, there's a bigger upside here? Like, I'm sure at that point in your career, you were thinking about this stuff. So is that what kind of made you kind of plant roots there at the end?
Yeah, for sure. The crazy thing is, so, I'm from New York, played for Toronto, Milwaukee, Detroit, went to Connecticut, all cold cities. So when I get to Dallas, I'm like, wow, like in December, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. And to me, that was just crazy. I mean, I know now things has changed now a little bit.
Yeah, the climate's a
But
little
back
different.
then, I'm like, I'm in shorts and in a t-shirt in December. And I mean, I've never, experienced that. And it barely snows out here. So it was cool. I love the weather. So decided to make this my home. Because before that, I thought, once I retire, you go to Florida. So I ended up building a house in Florida and in Fort Lauderdale, thinking that was home, but it was really just a house, man. It wasn't really a home. And when I decided to come back here, I met my wife. So it just made sense to make Texas my
Yeah,
permanent
it's
residence.
a good place to be.
And then taxes, and then that played a role. But I
Yeah,
already had the Florida. Florida was the
yeah,
same.
same thing. Yeah.
So I already knew, like, I was gonna be in Florida, but Texas to me it's even a lot cheaper to live than Florida is.
What's the
Uh,
living?
and then plus, my daughter's here, my wife is here, so it just made sense for me to be
Hey,
here. I really had no family in Florida.
so, I know you've done a bunch of tech. I know you've done a bunch in Houston. And I think is your brother's real estate agent based out of Houston? It's
Yeah,
Tulsa,
yeah, but it's Texas. I mean,
Texas in general. Okay.
it can service anywhere in Texas. Yep.
Where are you looking at down there right now? Like if someone would say, hey, where are the real estate opportunities down there? Like what are you looking at down there that you think this is something that I would kind of put my money towards real estate wise in Texas right now?
The thing with Texas, man, is a lot of land still available, man. And that's very rare to, I can't say the same thing for New York, right?
No,
And
nowhere.
like the city, right? It's impossible to get any type of land. If you do, you're gonna pay a hefty price for it.
Yeah,
So here, just the land value is super cheap. Property values are a little bit high. But that's how they make it up with the taxes, with the no state income
yeah,
tax.
yeah,
But
yeah. To get you
they
on,
hit
yeah,
they
yeah,
hit you a little bit over the head, with the property taxes. But I mean, it's nothing crazy. But there's land out here, man. And the thing that I like about Houston over Dallas is I think Houston has more opportunities. I prefer living in Dallas, but Houston has more opportunity and it's a little bit cheaper. But in Houston, there's no zoning, meaning you can build whatever the hell you want.
really. That's
Yeah, there's no, but in Dallas, Dallas has its rules, but Houston's a little bit more lenient on that. So, um, and you can kind of do whatever the hell you want,
you've
which
built
is
down there.
cool.
Built down there a few times, haven't you, at this point already?
Yeah, I built a couple single family homes, townhomes. I have some land over there that I'm still gonna build some townhomes as well. And those worked out well for me. But it's crazy because I've only built new construction in Houston. I'm actually doing one. I mean, besides this house, besides my house and another property that I'm doing that which is on the lake as well. I'm doing it in Dallas, but most of the time I'm building new construction in Houston.
Where you live in Dallas is like it's not what I expected out of Dallas. Like I didn't expect to have that kind of lake with that kind of Sunset. Like you really found, and I think when you bought that property, if I remember correctly, like you bought it, but you weren't even sure what you were going to do with it when you first bought it, and then
Yeah, yeah.
that's what it was. But it's beautiful. Where you live is beautiful.
Oh, thank you, man. And I kind of wanted to bring Florida to Texas, right? So, and then I've always wanted to live by on the water, and I know in Florida, I'm for a house this size and for what I did here in Texas, if you move this house to Florida, I'm paying, close to $10 to $12 million to be on
Exactly.
the lake.
Not
You know what
easy.
I'm saying? So, and it's over here in Texas, just a fraction of that. So, um, it just made sense for me to to build here in Dallas.
I'm going to mention a couple more things. I'm going to let you get out of here. The first thing I want to mention, if you kind of give people this, you're doing a great job on social. Like, and I think you've always have, but I feel like over the last like year, it's gotten even better. Like, just like the parodies you're doing and the TikToks you guys are doing, and like it's been like you're putting stuff up like I think is going viral for other reasons than you just being who you are at this point now. So I wanted to kind of give you that feedback at least now because I
Yeah.
really like your social media a lot. So whoever's listening to us, if you're not following, you haven't checked out, you 100% should. But did you change strategies? Or you just kind of being you, or you just like what has it been with that?
You know what's crazy is like, it's hard for me to say me being me because if you put a camera in front of me, like let's go, let's go. But
Yeah,
I'm really low key. I'm low key in the cut. I like, um, but I just realized that, I put a funny video out there and I talk about like real topics. I talk about things like, in relationship business. I talk about a bunch of stuff. So, um, it's just, the feedback that I've been getting. I've just did it one time and then it's like, okay, then, you get good feedback. So then you just want to stick with it. So yeah, man, I'm just giving the people what they want to see.
yeah, it's been really good. And even the relationship, I mean, put some stuffs out there that people like. You ask the question like, "What do you think about this?" But like, I think that like even for me, like the algorithm's so crazy on these apps that
Yeah,
like, but it's made me re-engage when I was in senior, and then I started looking at it, and now it's showing up all the time again. But it's because you kind of put this new content out, and it kind of like made me go looking for it. So like
yeah,
you really really good job with it. Um, Another question I have for you before you get out of it, you're a big sneakerhead. I saw your sneaker collection, kind of. I've seen it before. I know
yeah.
you're a Nike athlete. I know you're a Jordan guy. Is there something that you have that's like super special or a couple or a line or something like that that you were like, if I had to have one thing, this would be it, or one or two things, this would be it. You know what I mean? Like, how do you, because you have thousands and thousands of sneakers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big sneakerhead guy,
Yeah,
right? So, and I was a Nike guy, for a while, but just I'm excited and proud of the collection that I have,
crazy.
over the course of, that I've had a Nike deal. I've saved a lot of sneakers and I kept them in good condition because just I'm big in sneakers, but one of the things that was a requirement is I needed to have a two-story closet because I needed to store those sneakers.
And I've seen it. I saw it on the construction and it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Got to see it now. You seen it now, right? You
I
seen it now?
saw a video of it today. I was looking at that sneaker show that you did,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
and
yeah,
that was dope that they showed all that stuff. And
yeah.
you said something that I don't think you were a Nike athlete, but you still had to buy a lot of that stuff. But you used to go just shopping. Like you would go like, I need to get these. I mean, you're a Jordan guy. You like, I've always been a Jordan guy too. I've kind of become a Kobe guy. Do you have a lot of Kobe's too? Do you have you?
I don't. I'm kind of faithful to Jordans,
Yeah,
man. But what's getting me right now, these new Travis Scotts.
I know.
Travis Scott he's been doing a great job with the sneakers, man. I love what he's been putting out.
I had this conversation with somebody recently. I think he had like two of the top three sneakers last year, like of stuff that was like hard to get. Like he really has done a good job with his sneakers as far as
Yeah,
like he's
just
killing.
the backwards Nike check does it for me,
I
man.
know, it's different. So when you see
That's
those,
fire.
they look different. They don't look like
Yep,
ones or dunks or lows. They
yep,
kind of
yep.
so.
Yeah, they
And
fire.
last question before I get out of here, kind of you're doing all this great stuff, man. I really and you do a lot. What's kind of next? Like, what are you excited about now? What are you passionate about now? What are you working about now that you're like all in 100% on?
So I'm at the point now where I want to grow. I've done the real estate, which real estate is always going to be part of my portfolio. But I want to do bigger things. I mean, I can only do so much
Yeah.
on my own. So having the right partnerships is important. So one of the things that I've been working on is, I mean, I'm kind of going to give you the the juice here.
Really good. This is good.
I've been keeping it on the wraps, but it's starting to form pretty beautiful per se. So I'm getting a bunch of I'm looking at my old contacts, a bunch of former athletes, you know, retired athletes and entertainers. I'm not gonna say no names, but just know there's some big names in here. So what I do is, and I've had already two great meetings where we call it breaking bread, and it's just a bunch of former athletes, entertainers come into a room and let's break bread. Let's see what you got going on. Let's see what I got going on. How can I add value to what you got going on, and vice versa. And I did it the first time. You know, me and my wife were just thinking about it, and we was thinking like, hey, we should just get a group of guys, invite them, and just talk about real estate. But and then as we were, when I did my first one, and I saw the amount of people that came, I mean, I had like 15 or 20 guys, you know, at the house, and I was like, man, there's an appetite for this, man. People want this, and it turned from us talking business to all us talking, you know, mental health, us talking about relationships, us talking about things deeper than just making money. So I was like, man, I think I got something here. And then recently I just did one. I did another one a couple of days ago. It was a great turnout. So we're forming this group, you know, where eventually, hopefully, it can be a fund, where we can all, you know, because I feel like we're stronger together. I can only do so much, but I'm extremely powerful if I have, you know, two or three other guys with me. But right now we're in the stage of, you know, gaining trust, because that's one of the biggest things in business is gaining
You
trust.
have the right network for it, and if you're right, if people have an appetite for it, kind of the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, man, and man, I'm excited because I got some real powerful names, and um, it's the sky's the limit. I feel like we're stronger together, and I'm a firm believer. You put similar mind people together in a room, something good is gonna happen. So that's what I've been working on. So stay tuned for that, man, because we coming big, man. We
Glad to
coming
see it,
big.
man. I mean, the thing I'll say about you, and the thing that I tell people about you most whenever your name comes up and we talk about the show, whatever it is that like this guy's like the most normal person in the world. Like every single time I've reached out to him, he's never not replied. Like he's always like giving of his time. And I think what people don't understand, and as I get older and you have kids too, and they grow up fast, like time is your most important thing about everything. And you're willing to give it up for the right things. And you dedicate a lot of your time for free to the right thing. So I'm excited for whatever you're going to do next, man. And you're, in my opinion, a real leader in, forget about athletes, or you're a real leader in the community. And I think that's the biggest thing people should be following you for, that you're really putting positive energy out there and you're doing great things. And it's going to be a movement one way or the other, whatever you decide to do with it.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And I appreciate you coming on. And just, I'll recap, this Thursday is the first episode. This podcast is going to be coming out Wednesday or Thursday, and Thursday night, it's going to be June 25th. June 25th is going to be the first episode of Disruptors Network Season 2. And Charlie's the star of it. Him and his wife are going to show us the new construction that they're now living in. But I'm excited for it. And I really, really appreciate you doing this for me.
Yeah, no problem. You said June 25th or January 25th?
Sorry, January 25th. That would have been messed up.
I got you.
Thank you.
I help you out.
January 25th, Thursday, January 25th. It's going to be out at 7 o'clock. And I hope everybody tunes in and watches it and enjoys it.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait, man. And yeah, just if you have any content to put out, just let me know. I'll put it on my network.
I appreciate it, man. And for everybody else, Charlie's really easy to find on social media. And if you're not following him now, you definitely should be. He's putting great stuff out, and he's just a good guy overall. But thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, brother. Appreciate you.